As I'm pretty sure we all knew, YouTube released their annual Circle Jerk this year, and it was pretty, what's the phrase I'm looking for? Let me just remember, it'll come to me any second now, just gotta think on this one. It's, abysmal, that's the phrase I'm looking for. The title of the video was The Shape of 2017, despite the fact a more accurate title would have been Don't Call 2017 at 3 AM, OMG they actually answered, or they could have just gone for the classic, the official 2017 diss track. Now I'm not here to tell you about how YouTube treats its creators like shit, or the fact that the rewind has just become one long joke in the community, although you can look at a few jokes if you pause the video right now. I'm here to talk about something that releases near Christmas every year and is actually good. Pokemon. Well, the games at least. Now, this video will be less focused on the games themselves, but more on their impact on Western society. Now, with Pokemon being the juggernaut that it is, naturally at some point it's going to gain attention from mainstream audiences and not just its fans, and this happened two times. The first of which was in 1997 when the game was first released in the West. Now, with JRPGs being slightly more niche and harder to translate into different cultures, it means there's sometimes a difference in the release dates. For example, Bravely Default's original Japanese release was in 2012, however, to get to the US and European regions, that was in 2013. Isn't that right, me from 6 months ago? While mainline Pokemon games are typically an international release, with Red and Blue they released in America and Europe a year after they released in Japan. What they decided to do was release the Pokemon games at the same time as the Pokemon anime and the Pokemon TCG, creating Pokemania. Now, this event did jumpstart Pokemon's success and has led it into the juggernaut that it is nowadays, but it wasn't all Solroks and Ho-Ohs. This explosion in popularity gave rise to two problems, a short-term problem and a long-term problem. The first of these problems was the short term, where news dickheads would start to attack the Pokemon franchise. This didn't serve as much as a problem as some of the reports have aged kinda badly.
The animated Japanese import created by Nintendo also holds the top 5 video game slots.
Man, it's almost as if they were games before it was a TV show. The long-term problem was that it spawned one of the more cancerous sides of the Pokemon fanbase, that being the Gen 1er. Within the Pokemon fanbase, people are given names depending on what their favourite game is, so considering my favourite game is Soul Silver, it means I'm a hybrid of a Joe Toddler and a Sinnoh Fetus. Gen 1ers are people who will say their favourite games are either red, blue or yellow, except they won't pronounce it my favourite, they'll instead pronounce it the best Pokemon games ever and everything after it is a Digimon looking piece of shit. Now I've got no issue with you saying these games are your favourite, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but when you're saying that future games are inferior to these, that statement smells a bit like BS. I mean, these games have worse balancing issues than the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and the best Pokemon design out of 150 of the little buggers is a glitch? Yeah, it might not be the best game in the franchise. Don't get me wrong, they're great games, but if you want to experience them, I'd recommend Fire Red or Leaf Green for that. Now, Pokemon kept selling large figures throughout the next 20 years. Not the height that we saw back in the 90s, but still quite popular. The mainstream media had already found another gaming franchise to call a plague among our youth, so it wasn't going to get much outside attention. This was fine as people flocked to the games because of good gameplay, apart from Gen 1ers who were too busy worshipping at the shrine of Charizard. The resurgence in popularity came in 2016 with the release of Pokémon Go. It wasn't necessarily a mainstream game, but a means to drum up recognition for the franchise. While the price of entry for a mainline Pokemon game was 200 quid to buy a 3DS and then probably a bit more to buy the actual game, everyone owns a mobile phone, and so Pokemania 2 Electric Boogaloo began. Now the short-term problem began again because people were doing stupid shit in the name of Pokemon Go. However, this time we had an excuse, that being hate the players, not the game. However, the long-term problem was strengthened as we saw a resurgence in Gen 1ers. Now, Niantic planned to have all the Pokémon in there, but they had to start with just the 150 Gen 1 Pokémon. But the updates were few and far between, so it meant we were stuck with them for a while. This meant that the mainstream only saw Gen 1 Pokémon as valid. For example, take a look at this video by the world's most aggressive form of cancer, or as it's otherwise known, BuzzFeed. For example, in their video, how many sexual Pokemon innuendos can you catch in this song, because the title Pokemon Innuendo Song was too simple, I had the misfortune of counting every Pokemon mentioned in this song. In total, there are 46. How many aren't Kanto Pokemon? 1. For me, Pokemon Go, fine game. It's something fun to do between destinations. I even played it after the player base started dwindling, which did give me the nickname Pokemon Go Kid, but let's face it, I've had a lot worse nicknames. For example, Hentai Boy, the Possessed Kid, and that bastard who spoilt Stranger Things for me. However, one day I saw an advert for Pokemon Sun and Moon that broke me. It was a picture of a Kanto Pokemon that got an Alola form, and next to it a quote reading, "If you love Pokemon Go, this'll be the perfect thing to follow it up with." No. Just no. You don't compare a full game to a mobile game with a dwindling player base. Comparing these two is ridiculous because Pokemon Go doesn't have many of the elements that make you a Pokemon game besides catching Pokemon. I mean, Pokemon Sun and Moon has story, characters, memorable music, a means to battle between players. The list can go on. At the time that statement was written, Pokemon Go had none of this. Claiming that Pokemon Go has the same amount of content as a full game despite lacking so many features, it's like trying to make Stormzy shut up, but every other lyric must be hot chocolate and a panini to go, which, for those of you who don't know, sounds like this.
Man, try say he's better than me. Hot chocolate and a panini to go. Mention my name in your tweets. Hot chocolate and a panini to go. How can you be better than me?
And so when the time came, I picked up my copy of Pokémon Moon and the complimentary Magikarp card that came with it. And I'm glad to say, it's probably one of the most polished Pokémon experiences out there. So to go back to my original question, does Pokémon face a threat from mainstream audiences? Fuck no. While the advertising is aimed at new players as an attempt to draw in people who have no idea about Pokemon games, that's all it is, advertising. The games, however, are catered to the perfect audience. Not newbies, not Gen 1ers, but people who come looking for a good gaming experience. This is why I like Nintendo. They're a company who used to make games that you could only extend by adding more money into them, but now make complete packages of games. Unlike EA, who occasionally make complete packages of games, but are now making games that can only be extended by adding more money into it. Some companies need to learn a bit quicker.